And the recording is in progress.
Nice.
Okay, no swear words now. And people are in fact joining. That's pretty cool.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Hey
Oh,
everyone.
they're rolling in.
There. Very cool. We're gonna wait a few more minutes for everyone to arrive before we start. But yeah, people are coming in. That's pretty amazing.
Okay, so disclaimer for everyone, we are recording this webinar today and it will be posted on YouTube afterwards. So please be aware if you plan to write or talk during today's event. You are free to ask any questions at any time during the webinar. There's a Zoom action where you can raise your hand. Please use this if you plan to talk, to ask a question, or simply use the Q&A form, the button down there, if you prefer to write your question instead.
Great.
Fantastic.
Q&A questions can also be asked anonymously. So if you ask anonymously, we are not going to say your name, obviously. So you're not going to be in any recording or anything.
Great.
But if you are actually asking questions with your voice by raising your hand, that will be in the recording. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and a bit the idea of today, guys, is to keep it very easygoing, to share some best practices about user churn, what we can all learn from chatting with each other. So yeah, that's kind of the vibe of the day. I hope that matches with everyone, and yeah, we're happy to take questions at any time. So feel free to raise your hand or just write in the chat.
Yeah, just interrupt us directly. Like, don't wait, just jump in. This is an open, friendly forum.
I will make sure that the questions go to Pietro and Daniel, and I will keep track of that. And yeah. You want to wait a few more minutes, or are you ready to start already?
Oh, let's wait one more minute. But it seems like most of the people were already in the waiting room and just like tumbled in. So I think we can just start on time, and then we have a bit more time.
Yeah, maybe we can ask the audience, like, where are they coming from, which country, in the chat, if you guys can write it down. So I'm Italian, but I'm currently in Spain. That's my side. And you, Daniel?
I'm German, and I'm currently in Germany, but I love Spain, and I'm going to visit in July, I think. No, June.
Nice. Make
Yeah,
sure
I'm
to...
sitting in Estonia, but I'm originally from Germany.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, the chat gets populated. Yeah, I think. Yeah, there we go.
The chat seems to be disabled. Yeah, people are writing. Thanks for telling us.
See, that was a
Oh,
good
but we get them in Q&A. That's also good.
Yeah,
Chat seems to be disabled.
I need to.
By the way, I recognize a few names in the attendees list, and I love that.
I need to dismiss them because else I need to scroll down for the new questions. I don't think that's a good thing. So sorry, everyone. I will dismiss your beautiful places you are coming from.
Yeah, hello to France, Germany, Barcelona. Yeah, that's all I saw right now.
French. There you go. I know, I recognize Mathilde. Beautiful. I think maybe we can get going. What do you think, Daniel?
Sounds good, yeah.
Let's
so
go.
Pietro, please introduce yourself first, and then please hand over to Daniel.
I forgot
Thank
that
you.
was me first. All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Pietro Feraccini. I've been an entrepreneur for a while now, and my recent entrepreneur adventure is called Chat Insights, and that's kind of the reason why we're here, because we help mobile apps pretty much better understand their users so they can reduce churn, they can increase activation rates, and pretty much like build a better product. So the idea of today on my side is to share the best practices, everything that we've learned on our side, and share with the audience, but most especially learn a little bit from you guys. What are the things that are working in your apps that we can all learn from? Because this is a space to share these opinions and like get a general feedback on it. And go ahead, Daniel.
Fantastic. Hey, I'm Daniel. I'm the lead developer of Telemetry Deck. Telemetry Deck is a analytics platform, mostly for mobile apps, with a very strong privacy focus. And so I thought it's a great idea to work together with Chatty Insights and with Pietro, because we are doing something that's very similar, but also very different. Like we're good complements to each other. So whereas you are very much working with user acquisition, churn, and retention and stuff like that, we're also about ways that your users are using the app, the ways that users are taking throughout your app, that kind of thing. We're also dealing a bit with retention. So I think, yeah, we can like exchange notes, we can learn from each other and just see what comes up.
Amazing. Okay, then Daniel, I think the first question maybe that I wanna ask to jump in is sort of, how is churn defined in mobile apps? Like in your experience, what has been that definition? How do you measure it even?
Yeah. That is actually, we can't measure churn directly. That's the first paradox, really. What we can measure though is retention, and retention is exactly the opposite of churn. Like every month, I can look which of the users of the previous month or the previous year or whatever did we retain, are still actively using the app that I'm analyzing. And so if that is, let's say, 80%, then of course, I can see that I have 20% churn. Now 20% is probably a lot, depends on your app and whatever, but that's how you really define churn for a mobile app, especially if it's a free app. Then of course, if you have a paid app, and that's the same on the web, I assume, is like, of course, churn as measured, are people actually stopping paying, like stopping their payments? Are people actually actively canceling their plans? That's a more active action. That happens too, of course, but especially on mobile, we look a lot at retention, and as in usage retention.
Got it.
How about you? Like, what is your definition of churn?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the type of mobile apps, you know. For some people, a churned user is when, you know, they're no longer active. They've for example, eliminated the app, and then, you know, at that point it's very tough to get them back. Or also when they're inactive for a certain period of time, right? We both share a customer actually, and one of the things he used our product with is like to understand why people leave. And they're not coming back to the product, so you activate Chatty at that point. And so that's the thing, his definition. But another one is indeed when you have someone that pays for your service that does not pay anymore, and they either downgrade to a free version or they just completely leave the service all at once. And I think that is how they define churn.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting.
How do you think that's like, when is the time when I can really talk to that customer? Like, should I wait until they actually cancel their plan, or should I try to get in earlier?
Yeah, so I mean, according to our experience and what we've seen at Chatty, the best moments to interact with your users when you identify them as, let's say, a risk of churn, right? So every app knows more or less when that is the point, right? Maybe your app is supposed to be used daily, and then your user's not using you for like 10 plus days, 20 days, and you're like, okay, there's something wrong here. Then you can activate like a notification or something that comes out, in our case with Chatty, and ask them, okay, why is it that you're not using the app? Is there something went wrong? Can we help? And so on. So that works really, really well. And another way where we kind of like want to jump in to get the conversation started is when a user has upgraded or downgraded. So whenever they downgrade, it's, in our opinion, best to ask them directly at that moment, because they have it fresh in mind. They just made a very important decision. While the upgrade is different, because at that moment they just committed to a bigger service or like something like that. And in that point, we want to give them time to get acquainted to the new service, and then ask them their opinion on it. What is it that made them upgrade it? And is that first thought now validated with the product after they've seen it, after they used it? So that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
I like that. I love the idea of any metrics that indicate someone is at risk of churn. So you're saying, okay, if someone is actually not actively churned, but has already stopped using the app, or the frequency is going down. Like, are there any other metrics that that come to your mind right now? Like, how do you identify a risk of churn?
Ah, that's a very, very tough one, which I would like to open to the public. So if you guys have any answer to that, please drop it in the comments. But in my opinion, is definitely usage. So you got usage first and foremost, and then potentially any specific metrics that any app might have, right? Maybe they use some type of in-app currencies that is not being used, or the user is not performing the key actions that should drive value, right? In my product, which is a SaaS, is probably like generating an analysis or collecting responses. And if you're not doing that for a period of time, I'm like, okay, that's a orange flag, right? Something is up.
Right.
Maybe you deactivated it because you were doing some changes, but something might be going on.
All right. We get a question, now we get an answer actually from
Okay.
Mike, who says churn is mostly talked about at the individual level, like sales. But how can I use analytics to predict my churn rate and maybe identify segments with different churn rates? Okay. Segments is pretty cool, actually. And we can talk about segmentation a bit more. But and how can I use analytics to predict my churn rate? Yeah, that's basically, so you have these, of course. You have these indicators that Pietro just talked about. What you also have is, I think, trends. Like, your general churn rate. Like, historically, it's mostly for this version of your app, or for actually your whole existence, it is at X%, let's say. And so, of course, that of your current users, X% will probably churn, like plus minus one. And so, if you just give your users, let's say, some kind of percentage of churn risk, and then just sort them, the lowest X% will probably churn. So those are the ones you should really talk to in the methods that Pietro already said, I think.
Yeah, and Mike, if you want to jump in and kind of tell us a little bit about what you're building, and explore a bit your question, we're happy. Okay, I love annual subscription for cash flow, but it makes it hard to optimize churn. Okay, so you would like analytics pretty much to help you reduce that window and kind of give you some type of prediction on churn. Gotcha. Yeah.
I think that helps with our direct customers. Like, Telemetry Deck has customers, of course, and what really helps with those are just seeking a connection. Like, on the one hand, we're very open on the various social platforms, so people can just write us there. On the other hand, we semi-regularly ask the people directly while they're using our software. We ask them for an NPS score, or we ask them hey, what is the one thing you really want to accomplish using Telemetry Deck? Or we ask them, hey, how do you feel about this right now? What we also have is we have pretty prominent ways to report a bug. So if you are frustrated with something, you just press the big red button that says, hey, I want to give me your manager, and then describe the bug. But yeah, how do you? But I think it's without talking to people automatically, it's probably going to be one of the metrics we already talked about. If you have an individual project, you can try finding trends and correlations there. Like, for example, if I don't know, does Chatty Analytics have Chatty Insights have events that happen before churn? Like, does it keep track of those?
Yeah, no. So usually we rely on the final customers to create kind of custom events when Chatty appears, because they know best, right? So in your case, Mike, it's probably will probably be interesting to look at your data and kind of see, okay, what are the predictors of churn historically? Yeah, because that's the only thing you can do, right? You cannot forecast the future without having some type of data on the past. That's not going to be 100% accurate, but it might help you save a few users that are actually on their way to churn. So you can kind of preemptively attack that on that side. But I think that's something pretty custom that you have to dive deeper into your own analytics to extract that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that might be possible is like Telemetry Deck, especially, it's very event driven because it's a very generic analytics solution, and not about the customer facing stuff. So what you can do is like if you know a lot about what your customers are doing, and then you can kind of segment your customers into, for example, let's say, especially those customers that have churned or that haven't returned to the app for 2 months or so. And then you do a sort of root cause analysis, which is to say, find the commonalities in the last 10, 20, 50, 100 analytics events that these customers have sent. And sometimes a good algorithm can find commonalities there. Maybe sometimes an algorithm will find, well, all of these have in common that a lot of them have done a certain action, or a lot of them have reported a lot of bugs, or a lot of them have encountered crashes, or a lot of them have started a process and then not finished it, stuff like that. But that will, of course, be individual for your application or product. But yeah, there's ways of finding those outlier data, but they're going to be highly individual. We are internally working on like trying to find ways of like finding these automatically. But we're not 100% there yet. But you as the product owner or developer or the maker of your app you have a pretty good feeling about like how people are really inside your app. And if you have the data that you already have using Chatty and telemetry, I think you're gonna be you can pretty quickly start building hypotheses. You can say like, okay, I think that most of the customers are churning because of X. And then what you do is like you pay especially close attention to that part of your app. Let's say it is the way the part of your app where you create something new and that just frustrates people somehow. And you say like, okay, my hypothesis is that people who like can't create new stuff, that they will churn. And then you find a few metrics that will either confirm or deny that. You say like, okay, my experiment is that I'm going to take all the people who failed to create a new item and then look at the churn rate. And the churn rate in that is way higher. And then you have a candidate for improvement, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Daniel. I think that's 100% the case. And in your opinion, like I haven't seen many apps in your industry. What is like a good churn rate? Because sometimes we look at these numbers and we're like, okay, like am I doing good? Like what is the industry average? What should we be expecting? Like especially in different, let's say, stages of an app, right? You have the beginning where you are acquiring the first few users who are your, like the early adopters of your technology that maybe want to like share the most feedback to improve it. And then slowly you scale it up to like kind of a mass adoption. And then maybe you're going to see more churn. In your experiences, do you have some numbers that we can throw out there in terms of what is a good churn to look at?
I have some numbers, but they're super vague. That's because, especially on mobile apps, the churn numbers are sometimes very huge, depending on how you define churn, but also they vary wildly between different app store categories. Like, for example, games, they have, like, if you take a game and also you define churn rate as someone that has just stopped using the app, who previously, like, your churn rate is going to be 80-90% at least, if not 95, because people will just try out stuff and then be like, okay, this is not for me. I've never been a paying customer. I'm just going to ignore the app. After a while, it gets deleted from the phone. So yeah, that's like, so especially if you have a freemium app or a free app that is a mobile app, you will have a lot of churn rate, as in like people are just abandoning your app. On the other hand, if you have something that is still maybe a mobile app, but it is paid and something like a productivity tool or whatever, a really good churn rate to aim for there would be like, let's say 10%, and really good, maybe 5%. I also have some ideas about, let's say, web SaaS products, but I want to ask you the same questions. Like, what are good churn rates for you?
I mean, it's so the best churn rate is not churn, right? Of course, but you're always gonna get customers that for a reason or another leave. And like the other day, I was talking to a scale up here in Barcelona. They have more than 300 employees. You know, they're like in the big game, let's say. And now they have a target of something around 1.5% churn rate, with something like I think 11,000 customers that pay
Wow.
pretty big subscription. It's not like a €5 subscription like we might see in the App Store. It's more like a 300 monthly subscription. And now they're struggling because they're at something around like 3% and they're trying to bring that down. But by looking at their numbers and talking to them, we understood that a lot of their churn comes from, let's say, it is linked to causes that is outside their control. For example, they sell to property managers, to hotelier and whatever. Like, oh, I'm closing down my property. The person that was managing the account is deceased. It's not there anymore.
Mhm.
So and they're very laser focused on bringing these numbers down, but sometimes you cannot even affect them because it's outside your control.
You can't
So
stop people from dying. I mean, you could
you
try,
cannot
but
stop you can have them eat healthy and do a lot of sports, but
Right.
it's gonna be tough to keep them away from that. So like the interesting thing is that also how you approach this emotionally, right? Like it's your customers, it's your users, and if you see this number growing, is very painful. It hits your bottom line, so 2 times painful, like emotionally, because oh, my app sucks, my software sucks, and also financially painful. So I think it's very important to always remember that there are a lot of things that are outside your control in churn, and that you kind of like should put a piece of your mind at ease because of that. Naturally, if you're seeing crazy spikes going up and you really don't understand why, that's a very big red flag and you should be looking into it. But nevertheless, do not go crazy over these numbers, because even big companies are struggling to reduce their churn. And especially when you grow faster, you always leave some users behind, some customers behind, because you're up to meeting the newer standards for the newer type of people that you're bringing in your business. Because as we talked before, in the beginning of a mobile app, for example, you might be serving your early adopters to the best of your abilities, and that's going to be just fantastic for them. But later on, the mass adoption might come from a totally different user base, and then you're not going to be able to serve those early adopters that love you so much to the fullest like you did before. So you will have some churn eventually when you keep going up.
Yeah. And you make a really good point earlier as well when you say that if your customers are companies, churn rates are going to be very different than if your customers are like private people. So they're usually going to be lower, of course, because companies are usually buy for like less impulsively, basically.
Less
But
emotional,
I also,
sure.
but speaking of emotions, that's a really good point that you want to be, especially like people like us. We are building our own companies or co-founding our own companies, and like we really want our customers to be happy. Like if you are an indie developer, if you are a small startup, if you are a small company, you have, if not a direct line to every customer, you still feel everything. You like just what you said. So I like the way that you frame this with yeah, people will sometimes churn out, and it's not a reflection of you as a bad person or that you're doing a bad job. Sometimes people just leave. Like our biggest churn rate, speaking of people dying, our biggest churn indicator right now for Telemetry Deck is actually that a very small percentage of apps just don't make it, and people are like, okay, I'm going to close this app now. I'm not going to work on this app anymore, and they close it down, and that's of course a churn rate for us.
So you mean that whenever they're setting up telemetry, they just never complete the setup, let's say?
Oh no, what I mean is like they say like, hey, I'm going to make an app for, I don't know, hiking. And so they start working on the app and they release it, and then they add Telemetry Deck because they want to improve the app, and it grows, but it grows very slowly maybe. And at some point they say, okay, I'm not making enough money for this to make it my real job, but I'm putting in too much time for it to really be a hobby. So I'm just closing it down or not stop working on it. And that's we ask people sometimes like, why are you closing your account? And that's actually of the people who do that is actually a very common answer.
Okay.
And of course, that is also emotionally good because like if they're like, oh yeah, you're like your product is good, but like I'm just gone, then yeah, that's actually a pretty good answer.
That's a very
But
good
I wanted
point.
to ask you more about the emotions of dealing with churn because yeah, I'm also very rejection sensitive, so I totally feel you. How do you deal with like because Chat Insights asks your customers like how are you actually dealing with the app? Like how does it feel to use the app? And how do you deal with the negative answers there? Like if someone tells you, oh yeah, this is really bad because I don't like it or something, like do you have any cool recipes to share?
Yeah, so I think one of the, let's say, added value of Chatty, and I apologize for self-promotion here, that compared to a traditional survey or just like a simple questionnaire, that there's nothing wrong with it, but is that already over there, you're fixing some answers, right? You're like, okay, you're leaving because this and this and that. And that's great because the user can, quickly pick a choice and then just go. So let's say the impact on the user experience is very low. But at the same time, you're missing out on all the context, on all the reasons why. So how Chatty works is that you can set up, like, let's say a after churn care, where whenever they're leaving, you ask them, hey, why? And then based on what they replied, the AI kind of like follows up with that. And that allows you to pretty much capture the whole context, the whole story, because there's always a story. Oh, I'm leaving because I'm going to your competitor, even though I love your app so much that, wait a second, I'm actually going to take the time to explain you why I'm leaving to your competitor. Because if you had these features, I would actually stay with you. So we've seen like a lot of cases like that, where people go to an extreme length in explaining their story of the why behind their churn. And this is extremely useful for indie developers or even more experienced app developers that, have thousands and thousands of users, but they're struggling to understand why. And giving that option to the final user, to the churning customers to leave that feedback for you as almost like, I care about what you build, just tell me, like just receive this feedback so you can make it better. I think it's really, really beautiful. And it shows
really nice.
that, I care. So that churn, it hurts less because it comes with a reason why. I hate when people, let's say, like unschedule a meeting with me and they're like, oh, sorry, let me reschedule. But like, if you're not giving me the reason why, it just hurts much more. If you're telling me, hey, look, something came up, it's been urgent, I gotta postpone this, but I'll get back to you. That's much, much better. But sometimes we forget to do that. And I think that's super, super useful on the emotional level.
And so, how do I say this? Like, what kinds of messages do you actually send to your customer? Like, because what Chatty is really doing is, like, because we are mostly looking at the raw data of like how are these 100,000 people or these million people or whatever, how are they moving? Like very non-emotional. But you are more like communicating with actual customers. So what kinds of messages are you sending those? Like, are you like asking about how they feel about the app, or what, like, what
Yeah.
can the people in the chat kind of ask their customers?
Yeah, look, Daniel, I think this is really up for the company to decide. The general idea is that you want to ask for unbiased feedback as much as you can, right? So you just want to ask, hey, how's your experience? What do you think can be improved? What do you like the most about this app? What is really the value for you here? Why are you here? Why are you coming back to this app? Because sometimes it's crazy, but like sometimes we build solutions and then people use them, pay for it and so on, but we're never 100% sure on the reason why they're doing what they're doing. And so it's all about asking those why questions that are open-ended, that do not put people in a box, and is up to the final user to define and explain their story. Why? Oh, I care about Telemetry Deck because it really helps me with this specific thing. You're like, oh wow, I never thought about this use case, but because you don't have the possibility to have this very intimate relationship with your customers once you're at scale, right? if we had a small business selling to bakeries, we could go to all our bakeries and talk to them and really understand all their needs and always keep improving our products, or our bread. In that case, maybe we're selling them the flour. But when we're selling digitally, when we are looking at thousands of users, in your case, in telemetry, they're fully anonymized. You don't have a way to kind of like track them behind their behavior, and you don't know who they are. But how can you actually bring that user story back to them by asking them about their experience and what they think should be done, what they think can be changed. And another big learning, I think, that we got at Chatty is that you do not want to strictly follow what your users say, meaning that the final user or customer always has an opinion, because everyone has an opinion, right? The thing is that you should be able to dig behind that opinion and understand the raw meaning, the raw pain points that is affecting them in that way. That could be positive or very negative. But is once you identify the pain or the reason why they love you so much, that then you can think with all your knowledge of the development that you've done before and the industry that you know, okay, maybe we could solve this way, or we can, augment that, part of the product that everyone loves and put it even more into highlight. So I think this is something where a lot of people make mistakes into just following and building directly what their users are suggesting and they're telling them to. And sometimes you have to, but it's super important to dive and back and kind of understand that core problem or solution that this feedback comes from.
Yeah, never listen to just one user. Listen to 5 users, listen to 10 users, and then think about what are the commonalities between them. And then maybe make a little experiment, like put up a little hypothesis, that's a word again, where I'm like, okay, I think this is going to work better if I change this. And so maybe just change something for a small amount of your users, try it out, get some more data, maybe even do a proper A/B test if you have the option to do that,
Yeah, totally. I think that's great. Like in startups, we always work with small batches of tests to like try out things, because we really don't know what we don't know. And most of the things, we have no clue, right? We just gotta try it out, put it together, write down that hypothesis, super important, and build a test on top of that. Be it with your users, with your customers, with like your team, you just got to try out things and see what happens and measure. So that's why having strong analytics to measure the behavior of your user is super important. Also, next to the reasons why they're behaving in a certain way, because both things go only as far, right? I can understand, I know why people are leaving, but I also need to understand what is their behavior that is leading them to that to that point.
And I like also the fact that you're talking about the emotional part of churn, because sometimes you see like X amount of people leaving and you're like, oh, you're frustrated because they're leaving, and would you really like them to stay? But maybe you have no control over it, or maybe they're just the wrong customers. Like sometimes it is actually possible that these people came into your application and made an account, tried everything out, and were like, oh, this doesn't do what I thought it does. I thought this was, I don't know, something very different. So they're leaving. And then they're never your customers to begin with. So it's maybe makes sense to update your funnel. Like, how are you getting people into your app actually? Maybe make that a bit smaller at the top so you get the exact people that you need.
Totally. I think that's very, very valid point that, especially like both our products have like a free or a freemium approach to it, right? You can try it out, you can enter it, and you can like get a gist of it. And it's, would it be crazy to assume that everyone that comes in is going to become a final customer, is going to use our product eventually? A lot of people just try out tools because they're curious, right? And curiosity leads them. I tend to be very, very curious. I try a lot of tools. So a lot of companies for sure hate me because I just enter, I play around with a couple of things, and then I leave. So I'm definitely part of that churn that has never been super qualified. And I think that's why it's also very important to qualify your users whenever they get in, right? I actually don't remember how you guys do it at Telemetry, but what we're building now a
We
chat.
don't. So
Yeah, you don't. Okay,
give us tips.
hitting the spot.
Okay,
So we're
first of all,
implementing.
like picking up
Yeah.
the people where they are. What is actually qualify? What does qualifying mean in that context?
So qualifying and in my sales perspective is like, I want to understand who are these people and why they're coming here, right? Very basic. So in my business, I would ask them about, you know, are you a developer? Are you a marketer? Are you a product person? Like, who are you, right? And people love their titles, so they'll be very inclined to like kind of like pick one. And then kind of, even we're gonna try this out to have an open-ended question with like, what is the main reason that you think that will get you to use this product, or like, what is the value that you're hoping to get here? And that's gonna give us a very interesting insights on the reason why people are there. And then we know who they are in terms of role, and then why they're there. I think that really helps. And applying this into the mobile app game, I think this is extremely useful for attribution, right? You're going to be running ads, you're going to have organic social campaigns, and you want to know where these people coming from. There is some tracking that can be done, but now, you know, Apple restrictions, Google, like things are changing. So if you can own that data and somehow within the user experience ask them, hey, what got you in here? Can you tell me? Would you be open to say that? I think that's going to give you some very interesting insights that you might have not gotten otherwise.
Fantastic. That's really good. That's actually a really good insight as well. I love that.
Happy that we can help.
Let me look at what the things we wanted to talk about. By the way, like feel free to jump in with any questions by raising your hands or asking your questions in the Q&A.
Yeah, please. Okay, we got one message. Okay, I'm gonna read it out loud. From
Please.
Dan. I have an app for runners which used to be completely free, but I've recently added a one-time purchase paywall after a user hits a number of items. What common pitfalls or churn do you see from changing business models such as this? Okay, big one, Dan. I like it.
Yeah. First common pitfall. People are like, some people are going to be mad at you because something was free for them before, and now it's not going to be free anymore. But that is absolutely fine. Like, you just have to like bear the feeling of that. Like, these people, like, they don't think your app is worth what you're asking for, and I'm sure you have a very fair price because they don't know what amount of work goes into a good app. And so, yeah, those people, it's sad, but those people are no longer your customers. And the sooner you accept that, the easier it gets to receive those messages.
And look, Dan, I think that what Daniel is saying, Daniel is saying is really good. And to add to that, you know, you need to make a living out of your app. You need to like monetize at a certain point. So the question is always, what is it that you monetize and how do you do it, right? Do you go the reverse trial that a lot of SaaS companies are doing now? You give everything for free, all the pro, hyper mega version, whatnot. And then after a certain time, you take it back and you bring them to like the basic. So they've got a taste of the incredible product that you got, all the value, and then you bring them back to a restrictive version. So if they really need you, now they know what they're gonna get, so they will upgrade or not. Or you, like you were doing, paywall certain features up to a consumption, right? That's also what we do at Chat Insights. Well, we have a special offer for you guys today, but let's imagine you hit your 150 interviews, then at that point, you're gonna start moving to the next tier, and we're gonna block you from getting more, which is a pain because you always wanna get the feedback from your customers, and that's gonna potentially move you to the next tier. So it's a tough one, and there's no like golden answer, Dan. And you're probably gonna have to try it out. As we said before, build an hypothesis. Say, okay, I know my customers, so based on what I know, doing this will do that. You try it out for a period of time. Maybe you A/B tested. You split it between your users if that's possible, and you take home the results after a month or two, and see what worked.
Also, in addition to what you were just said, I think it's also good to know that this is going to be a process. Like, your pricing the way you ask your customers for money is never going to be static forever. Like just because you decide on something right now doesn't mean you have to keep it forever. Maybe you find out the placement of the paywall works, but the price doesn't. Then you change the price. Or maybe it's the other way around. Then you change the placement of the paywall. You know what I mean? Or the design or whatever. It's awesome to make data-driven decisions, but remember that all data-driven decisions are just taken in the moment. And so you never have complete data because you only have complete data after everything is done. And so yeah, just like feel free to try out, like gather some data, then try out some more, and then like you can release a new version every 2 weeks and play around with it. I would recommend a bit less, but yeah, you're gonna do experiments with your pricing, with your paying, stuff like that, and it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, you know, learn from the giants. Like if you look at Netflix, for example, what do? You know, they split test, they A/B test all over the world. You know, like me in Spain, I might be getting a different version of Netflix compared to Dan and Daniel in Germany, because then they just move the button like a few inches, a few centimeters, and that's gonna impact my usage. And me as a user, I wouldn't even notice that, but I've seen some case study and it's freaking incredible of what they do. And it just makes a lot of sense. They're like, okay, we have an idea, an hypothesis of what we think could drive more, let's say, product usage in their case, because they love when you watch Netflix. That's why the next episode comes out super fast, and you're like, oh, I'm just in a new one. All right. I guess this product is very sticky in the end, and I might keep subscribing to it. So learn from the giants. That's what I would say.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. Any more questions from the audience in terms of, do you guys want to come up on the stage and kind of like share what you're building, your specific struggle in terms of user churn or any related topics? Or you can just use the chat like Dan just did, and then we can pick up that point. Feel free.
While you are thinking about joining us, I'm going to share, because I have another question, and like I want to share something. But basically, this is I want to show how we can, or how lots of people are, this is not a Telemetry Deck thing, are actually visualizing retention. And so what I want you to look at is this thing at the bottom of my screen here, or the bottom left. Pietro, I'm sure you have seen something like this before, but yeah. I just want to show people like, okay, how does it look like if I visualize retention, which is every line of this chart is a starting month. So this is September 23, this is October 23, November, and then we're here in March 24. And then, so in every column here is 1 month afterwards. So these are the people who started in September 23. Of course, 100% of those people are actually present in September 23 because it's the same month, right? And then after 1 month, we see that only 50% are still using the app, which for this app is completely fine. And so we see that, but we see that afterwards, the retention is more or less stable. So half of the people drop off after 1 month, but then the drop-off rate gets a little bit slower. And then sometimes what you also can see is, like, for example, for the people who started in December, more people, like we have less drop-off here, we have more retention. And this is pretty cool because, of course, you can also splice and dice this by app version. You can say that, okay, for this app version, where we tried something different, people have stayed with the app longer. Or for this version, where we tried something else, people, like the retention of people are it's actually going down. So churn rate is going up. And so this is one way, if you don't want to do A/B tests or something, this is one way of really quickly trying out something, where if you just slice things by your app version number, for example.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I've been using a few analytical tools also in the past for my previous projects, and seeing like retention is one of the nightmares, and one of the things that you look at the most. Like, okay, people that started, are they been activated? Which is, I think, the first few steps, right? So you define what are the signals, what are the events that your users have to go through. In our case, you create an account, you sign up, then you create your first interview, then you start getting responses, then you generate an analysis. and then you play around with the analysis, you investigate your data. And that's when we define the aha moment, like, oh, okay, when you get there, yeah, you're all set. And I'm always looking at that data with my own customers, try to understand if there anyone struggling, can I help someone like go through the funnel and get them to that aha moment? Because I know that once they get there, the product is going to be much more sticky because they will get the full value of it.
Yeah, fantastic. Really good insight. Like especially like funnels are another really good tool that you really should look at. Christian asks, will Telemetry Deck Viewer feature month-over-month retention %? A drop from 50 to 35, for example, or 20? I mean, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Please open. By the way, Christian is someone who's sometimes making content that features Telemetry Deck, and I love that. Thank you so much, Christian. But yeah, open a ticket. We are always happy to change that or to update the UI in that way a little bit, because that's actually pretty easy to change.
That's interesting. Getting feedback live. That's amazing. That's amazing. Alrighty. So as we're approaching more or less the end of today, any more from the public who would like to share their story, their insights, any problems they're struggling that we can maybe attack directly, or we could go through our like couple of final slides that we have prepared for you guys today?
I could give some questions.
Please.
Put some together from the community beforehand. So I'm gonna just read them out loud, and you can answer them, and the people can still ask questions with the Q&A form. Some people ask if it's wait a second. Is it possible to reduce churn in a privacy and respectful way, and if tracking the user retention is possible without consent, like the privacy aspect when you try to get a churn rate and retention rate?
Okay, I think this is for you, Daniel. Go for it.
I mean, for sure. In the short answer is yes, because what you can do, and Pietro, I'd love to hear about like how Chatty Insights is doing that. But what you can do is with Telemetry Deck, for example, we only ever generate random user identifiers, but they stay pretty stable for a user. As long as the user doesn't uninstall their app, their user identifier is going to be the same, and that is completely fine under GDPR and other data privacy laws. So we don't know who this person is, but we know that they're the same person that came in yesterday. And that's enough for retention and churn rate calculations, because like if I see, oh yeah, so user 123 was here in December and user 123 is also here today, then I know that I have retained that user, or if not, then I've churned that user. So definitely these calculations are absolutely possible. How about you, Pietro?
Yeah, I mean, so by default, Chatty is anonymous. So any feedback that is collected is not traced back to the user. We're working on a feature where you as a company can infuse some data into Chatty and kind of like, for example, bring up the name of the respondent and so on, in case you want to do that. So you as a company is always going to have that options. But by default, it's anonymous because also we didn't want to put the burden on the company to having to deal with privacy regulations and so on. Because, you can always ask your users to identify themselves. You can ask them at the beginning or at the end of the conversation, hey, what's your name, what the company you're working for, if you want to get a follow-up from this feedback, right? Because that's also something pretty huge that we would like to work on in the near future is follow-ups from feedback, meaning I'm a user, I give a feedback to Telemetry Deck, I want you guys to fix this problem or to create this solution or whatnot. And it would be amazing if you guys can get back to me, right? And when you have 10 customers, easy peasy. When you have 10,000, it's a nightmare. But that adds a lot of personalization and really can bring the user experience to the next level, because they really feel part of the conversation and on the impact that they can have on the product itself.
Fantastic. I love that you're building your product this way. Like you're building it privacy first, and then you can ask the customer if they want to like tell you their name or stuff like that. So that's really awesome. I love that.
Nice. Thanks. Thanks, Daniel. All right. I guess then I'm gonna share a little bit the screen and jump on the key learnings that I wrote down for chat team. Does everyone can see my screen?
That's good.
Yeah, good. Okay. So I think what we mentioned a couple of points before, but in terms of churn, how do we actually attack that? The first step is to get continuous feedback loops. Because if you don't have feedback from your customers, you don't know what they're struggling with. So it will be very, very hard to predict churn. It will be very hard to control it. You could measure it, but you're going to be in a very ugly position to fix it. Then the second learning that we got is that you want to identify the user needs especially when they're recurring. So that's what we said before. I can measure through Chatty, of course, how many times people are having the same pain points. Oh, look, we cannot do this with your app. Oh, look, your competitor has this. Oh, look, I want to be able to do this. Those are all pain points, and you need to understand the why behind them. So we can help you with that. Super important that you get that figured out for your app. In the beginning, when you're starting very small, it can be on an Excel file, but when you're moving into bigger volumes, you gotta use technology to scale that. And then the final step is develop solutions that are addressing those underlying problems. Because once you identify them, you wanna hit those problems straightforward and rank them based on the recurrence, right? The biggest pain points with the most users complaining about them, those are the ones that you should focus your developer attention to. And I know all of you developer friends, you guys like to build, to code. So this is a way to direct your focus, your coding towards something that really, really matters. And those are a little bit the 2 cents of Chatty. And that takes us a little bit to the final offer that I want you guys to have since you came to the webinar today, and is 300 interviews for free for the next 2 months with unlimited insights. This allows you, again, to try out the platform, see if it's a good fit for you, and capture that continuous feedback. And moving on, how it works, I mentioned it before. You define what is it that you want to find out from your users. You collect those answers, and you gain that intelligence that allow you to move forward and fix those pain points and increase your retention rates ultimately. And of course, my contacts, but I'll leave that later. Go to you. I'll just skim through the contact. No, I'll drop my email in the message, but you guys feel free to scan the QR code if you want, or go directly to the website and reach out to me on LinkedIn or by email. But I just wanted to pass the word to our friend from Telemetry. Go for it, Daniel.
Thanks. Okay, so what we have learned is very similar to what Pietro and Chatty Insights have learned. But so I try to, because I saw your slides earlier, I try to have slightly different things so we can really pool our learnings. And so, for example, we want to collect data, but of course we want to collect data in a way that doesn't feel creepy. That people are more and more sensitive towards, oh yeah, everything is getting worse. Everyone is like just getting all your data. It feels weird and icky and creepy. Don't be like that. They're like, for example, you guys just ask, hey, can you actually identify yourself? That's perfect. But what I really and one thing that I really want to come back to is, like, always try to think like a scientist. Like, you are Charles Darwin and you found a new type of bird, and then you have a theory about how that bird evolved. So how can you test that theory? Think of like you are someone who has a problem and then has a possible solution, and then you try various things that help that might solve the solution, and so you find tests that give you the answer. Does that help? Does that not help? And the third is iterate towards your solutions. You don't have to find the perfect solution today or tomorrow or whenever you actually do stuff. You just have to find something that is slightly better than yesterday. Because then tomorrow you will find another iterative solution. And so, yeah, these are the practices that I really want to share. Can you give the next slide? That was for the beginning.
That's Daniel.
That's me. You can see me. So like, just give me the next.
the green beard.
You really need to
that.
re-dye it though. Yeah. Because
Telemetry.
we've talked about Telemetry Deck, I just wanted to show how it looks like. You've seen the user retention thing in the bottom left. But you can also like check out other things. This is basically how we build funnels and retention stuff and whatever. And yeah, give the next one. And these are other things that Telemetry Deck can give to you. This is kind of the infomercial part of the webinar. So we're gonna jump pretty much. And now I just saw this. Did you guys give people 2 months free? Now I'm like, oh, this says 1 month free.
Ouch.
So actually, okay. So what we want to do is we want to send out coupon codes to the people who are in this webinar. But the thing is, we cannot send you emails because we have forgotten to ask for double opt-in. So what I'm asking people is, A, can you go to that address or like go to our website, click on newsletter, actually subscribe, and then B, what we're going to do is we said we're going to send you a coupon, and because I can still change that, I'm going to make it to 2 months free. So same offer as Pietro's, just everything Telemetry Deck offers you, no limits for 2 months. I'm just going to just write it down.
Amazing. So everyone go to telemetrydeck.com/newsletter to get that double verification. And for everyone else that missed the slide, you can scan this QR code or reach me out directly to get the 2 months. So you get 4 months of free products today, guys. That's
fantastic.
That's something. All right, the promotional part is done. We have a couple minutes left. Anyone else that want to take the final words to it? Any unaddressed questions? That's the last call of today. Otherwise,
your last chance.
Last chance. Now or never, guys. Now or never.
Yeah.
Still around 16 people on here, so probably someone that is hanging on. But if nothing comes up, I have to say this has been great. I love talking to Daniel, and I really like your company, guys. I think you're doing something really great.
By the way, hang on, I gotta interrupt you before you say goodbye. Sorry. But we talked about feedback a lot. Actually, I just thought of this. Can you please, everyone who's listening to this, can you give us feedback? Like, just write us an email at our email addresses, or write us in the chat, or whatever. Just like, how did you like this? Was it good? Was it bad? What did you like? What did you not like? Did you like the format? That kind of stuff. Because maybe we're gonna do more webinars together in the future, and then we can make those even better. Right. Thanks. Sorry, really sorry for interrupting you, Pietro.
No, it's good. I'm just saying that Dan really appreciate the presentation today, that he got to know us, which we're a smaller startup, like coming out as a little flower, you know, and help, and Telemetry and Daniel, they're helping us talk to the same audience, because we care about the same people, you developers, you people building apps. So very happy that this is working and it's a good match. And nothing, I was just mentioning that I really like what you guys do at Telemetry. That's why we build this partnership, this collaboration, to serve the same people. Because ultimately, what are we here for? To make our users happy, to make our customers happy. And if we can use technology to make that happen, I think that's just a perfect match.
Fantastic.
All
right.
I would have a question. Yeah, actually, it's a question from myself even, because I was wondering, I'm always wondering this. It's if I notice that the customer has a hiccup somewhere with the product I'm offering, is it okay for me to contact that customer proactively, like without them giving me feedback first? Just if I notice in my system, okay, it seems like they have some issue, is it okay for me to go to them, ask them how it's going, without it being like creepy that I'm contacting them, you know?
It's a very good question. I mean, in terms of GDPR, I'm not so sure where that falls into.
Should be fine. Like if you have, if they registered for your service, and this is like, it's probably like fair use, because you're like actually helping them use your service. That's exactly what they sign up for. So legally, I think it's fine. I think what Marina really wants to ask, correct me if we're wrong, is like, is this, does this feel good or feel bad for customers?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because you wanna gather feedback, you wanna help your users out, but you also don't want to ruin the user experience. So it's that tough balance. And some apps do it where there's like a pop-up coming out, oh, were you looking for this, and then they help you out. But it's a fine line that you need to know how is your user base, and if you want to cross it or not. But food for thoughts, I would say, Marina, could be our next webinar.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I guess we'll close it on the clock then. Thank you everyone for coming today. Thank you, Daniel, for the great insights from telemetry. And I'm very happy that we got to chat a little bit about churn, and we'll keeping you guys posted on the newer and upcoming events that we'll be probably organizing, because this, in my opinion, was a great success. I know what you think, Daniel.
Yeah, it was super fun. It was amazing. I had so much fun. I love the little clap and heart emojis that are coming up here. That's amazing.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Does
you,
this work with my
everyone.
camera? It does. Fantastic.
Oh wow. I don't get that. And just well. Okay.
Oh,
It's cringe enough. Oh yeah, it arrived. All right.
Fantastic. So see you soon. And don't forget to sign up for the various coupons for Chitty inside the Telemetry Deck, if you like. And yeah, give us feedback via email or whatever. And see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.